Hello, listeners. Thank you for joining me on 21st Century Native Leaders. My name is Peter Deswood III, and I am here with Duane Humeyestewa and Kyle Sumatzkuku. So I'm not too sure if you all have seen on social media, but Kyle and Duane are raising money for Kyle to run the Boston Marathon. So if you take a look on Facebook, there is a GoFundMe out there as well, but just wanted to welcome Duane and Kyle.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, yeah, Kyle, welcome, and Duane. So we'll go and get going with this interview. So talk with me a little bit about your tribal affiliation. I know, Duane, before the show, you were kind of explaining your last name, just to give it some relevance. And so I'll go ahead. So Duane, if you want to start, go ahead.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I appreciate you having us, Kokwa. Thank you for allowing us to have this opportunity. I'm from the village of Masungnavi, and grew up there. Left home when I was quite young. I'm Badger clan Honanungwa from that village, and most of my experiences were, the grown-up experiences happened when I was 12, when I left Hopi to attend a school in Phoenix, and then eventually I moved to Washington D.C. for quite some time to finish out a portion of an ambassadorship experience that I had, and then moved to California for college. But life on Hopi was really awesome, and those experiences of growing up there, running and having a huge participation in the cultural atmosphere, the ceremonies and stuff, that allowed me to really embrace what it means to have the running experiences as a part of our culture.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think that's one thing that's really important is, the culture that has been in, that has come about because of, traditions that have carried on with our people. And I think that's one thing I want to do with the podcast is highlight those traditions and, that tradition of running within the Hopi people. Kyle, how about you?
Thank you. First and foremost, thank you for having us, Duane and I here. So it's a pleasure. And so my name is Kyle Sumatzkuku. I am the member of the Hopi tribe. I am 25 years old. My Hopi name is Letayo. Means running fox in Hopi, or fox. My godparents are Coyote clan, and I was initiated into the Coyote clan family. So I was born and raised in northern Arizona near Tuba City. My maternal clan family was originally from the village of Masungnavi, where Duane and I are from, but my father's family was originally from the village of from Moenkopi. So I was born and raised here in the village of Moenkopi, but I guess you could say my maternal family was from the village of Masungnavi. So yeah. And I am Kwangu as well.
Wow, thanks, man. It's a pleasure to have you guys. I'm glad we're able to connect and for you to share your story, Kyle and Duane, to talk about the fundraiser and to help you get funds to travel and run. And I think that's one thing that's really important, to represent people, represent Indigenous people in these large races. So Kyle or Duane, whoever wants to go first, what are the highlights of your career and how did you get to where you're at right now?
I'm going to let Kyle go first really quickly, and I'll follow up briefly with some of the highlights in my running experiences, especially growing up. Go ahead,
okay,
Kyle.
Perfect.
Okay, cool. Well, I started running when I was fairly young, but growing up as kids in the village, we would always race around with friends and whatnot. So, it was very just enjoying our youthful years, and over several years, it's allowed me to participate in especially with my friends, especially in school. It was just what we did growing up. We ran around a lot as part of the recesses or fun. I did not take running seriously for a while until middle school or high school. I was just a late bloomer throughout whole throughout from elementary school to middle school and then until high school. And running has always been a part of the Hopi culture as well. So naturally, the kids were always encouraged to run, burning off the energy on the playground. So like I said, we were just enjoying our youthful years. And it was not until high school when I really considered running, and I was kind of like more like dead set on the sport of running, and I took it more seriously when I could not do football or basketball because I was just so, I guess, horrible with those sports. And because of my size, I'm like 5'2", 5'3", 5'4", only weigh like 110 to 20 pounds now. So, or any other sport except cross country or track and field, because I think the whole spectrum was that I was just kind of like fell in love with running, and I was like, oh, okay, I can't shoot a ball, I can't dribble a ball, I can't dribble a soccer, I can't even hit a baseball. So I wasn't really good at those sports. So yeah.
So yeah, and then I know Kyle definitely had some solid, credible experiences training when he discovered cross country, and fell in love with it throughout high school. And so that was some of the things that I think we wanted to share too, in terms of like the highlights of what he did well throughout high school. And Kyle, I'm not going to speak for you, but I know there was definitely 2 or 3 races that stood out in high school. If you want to highlight some of those too, and that's to harken back to those days of high school, it's awesome because that's where you really learn a lot too about your body and figuring out who you are. So yeah, if you want to share with us those experiences, the highlights of that experience for you.
Yeah, totally. I was kind of like fortunate enough to improve my running abilities throughout high school or several years, or it allowed me to participate in several big notable races. With the team, I was able to travel to, I guess, to like some really good big high school races, I guess, in our region, I guess you could say. Of course, you got Flagstaff, you got Peaks, Four Corners, and along with, being able to have that kind of like pleasure to even be considered as a 20, I guess you could say, what, graduated 2015, 2016 state champion, I believe. Yeah, so I was kind of like, that's the only time I only won one state champion with a team wise with Tuba City High School. So that was kind of like the big quote unquote highlight, and especially racing down in the valley with Twilight, or even Doug Conley, I believe that race was called. I'm not entirely sure. I cannot remember, but those are the quite highlights to pretty much indulge you with. And being a high school state champion was kind of like the biggest highlight for me. So I was happy, I was fortunate, and that team there is kind of like, I consider them as my best friends and brothers until now. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So really quick, I was actually, one of the questions I was going to ask you is if you ran for Coach Baker at Hopi High. So you're actually competed against his teams then, is that correct?
Oh yeah, totally. But they were Hopi, and I kind of knew their runners too as well. So we're all good buds there. But overall, it was just friendly competition. So Rick Baker is a good dude as well. It was cool to get to know him and all his state title consecutive history. So yeah.
That's awesome. So you win a state championship. I think Tuba City is a little bit larger than classification wise in Arizona than Hopi is. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So was competition a little bit greater than the level that Hopi High School was that they ran in?
Yeah. It was the competition was kind of heavy because we did race against Page. We did race against Flagstaff too as well. We did race against Chinle, Monument Valley, just all the kind of like the big bona fide schools, high schools that were considered as like what, D2, D3, I believe. I cannot remember, but yeah.
That's awesome. So after high school, did you end up running anywhere in college? Talk to me a little bit about post high school.
Yeah, so post high school, it kind of started out a bit small because, I was only recruited by, I did consider several different colleges to attend, but I was invited to run for Bacone in Antelope Valley out in Lancaster, California. And the first recruitment was with Bacone College. So as you know, Bacone College was like an all Native American school slash JUCO college. So, I kind of like, I was like, oh, okay, sure. I'm interested of running for all Native American cross country team. And then it was kind of coincidence because like there was some other folks from like Chinle area, Winslow area, or even Monument Valley area, and especially like Flagstaff area. So they were like, "Hey, you're Kyle Sumatzkuku from Tuba City High School." I was like, "Hey, man, you're from you're from Winslow. I remember you." And so even though they have graduated before me, a year before me, but then again, they were still recruited by Bacone College, and I was like, oh, okay, I kind of find this, it makes sense now because they were just like all like everybody knew each other there, and it was going to be a full-fledged like all Native American team, so that was the goal. And I was like, okay, this I kind of like this. I was like, and then spent 2015, 2016, 2017 did cross country season, and then it went into track and field. And then after that, I kind of uh, came back home, took a break, and then next, it was Antelope Valley, same coach, Clay Mays, and he reached out to me. He was like, "Hey, I'm going to Antelope Valley." He was like, "Are you interested of coming out and just spending semester with me?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" I was like, "Okay, I still have eligibility and whatnot." So attended University of Antelope Valley back in 2019, and yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the recruiting process. I do have some younger high school and middle school athletes. Talk about that recruiting process for me and you getting to Bacone and getting to Antelope.
So from the start, it was kind of difficult. I mean, I didn't really consider myself like a really like that much of a fast or talented runner then, and I just kind of stuck to it and made a huge commitment, knowing that yeah, if I don't get into like a D1 or D2 school like NAU or ASU or all or like U of A here in Arizona, like, oh, okay, well, if that didn't work out, and then I was like, sure, why not go for like the JUCO colleges like uh, Bacone, or even going out of state, which is going to Oklahoma for me. But then again, I kind of looked at Paradise Valley, that was down in the valley. What else was there? CAC or Coconino Community College. They just recently did open a cross country season opener at Flagstaff. So it didn't really quite uh, I guess fulfill me if I did race for a JUCO college, even though if I get to spend my years of being putting on that uniform. But but it was kind of hard to even pick a college, because like I wanted to stay home, or am I ready to go out of state and compete? But then again, I was just so open minded, knowing that I was like, hey, I never gone to these places ever before, but Arizona is just so local. But I was like, what if I go to the Midwest and see what unfolds there? And I kind of enjoyed it. There were some other Native Americans too as well. Then we raced against Haskell, so I was like, oh, okay, this kind of like unfolded pretty unexpectedly, and I kind of enjoyed it. And then I saw some good pals from Haskell that weren't running, but then again, I always knew that they were recruited for volleyball or basketball or even football, and I was like, this is cool. I kind of really enjoyed it, but it was kind of tedious again, and just picking, I guess, the right college for me that was so suitable for me, even though I was open-minded. But then again, the journey there was kind of enjoyable, and I kind of liked it. It was cool.
That's awesome. And that's one thing I really like to talk about is sharing those experiences, what kept you there and, being connected with a group of people, right? So you don't get homesick. So Duane, talk to me a little bit about your journey to running.
For sure. Very comparable, similar to what Kyle did. And I'm probably exactly 20 years older than Kyle. And that's going to really age me. Everybody's going to probably giggle and laugh. But the irony is that I can relate to all the experiences that Kyle's going through or has gone through just recently. So when I was growing up in Misungnavi, we used to run a lot. And I think at a young age, when you get initiated into certain stages in your life, I mean, as a kid growing up and you're maturing, you're witnessing all of this stuff, and you realize how important running is as a part of the culture, how running is as a part of the overall structure of the society and its role and its place in all of that. And so I think that's something that is a learned experience. It's an experience that is basically seeps into your blood, into your DNA. And then when you do it competitively, quote unquote competitively, like at the school level, high school level, it changes the dynamics of how you approach it. So when I ran for Hopi Junior High, I only went to 7th and 8th grade there in Keams Canyon at the high school when it just opened. Those experiences were awesome, and the coaches were great. And of course, Baker was already becoming a legend his first few years there, really honing in on his craft. But nevertheless, I knew that I needed to basically challenge myself in terms of education. And so that just meant, as an ambitious kid, that I was going to want to go to school somewhere else. So I looked at all these high schools around the country to go to and also be able to participate in their sports program, especially cross country and track and field. And because I was competitive in nature in that way, I think when I finally sort of zeroed in on a school called Brophy College Preparatory in Phoenix, Arizona, they challenged me, but I embraced that idea that I could compete with some of these 5A division runners, and we had to prove ourselves. I was there my first year, and that was intense, especially for a young kid leaving the reservation and having to adjust and adapt to culture that's totally different or opposite of what you grew up with. That culture shock plays a part in how you adjust and how you maintain some sort of balance and sanity while you're doing these competitive things. But cross country for me was also very, I don't know if spiritual is the right word, but there was a sort of a deeper connection to the purpose and the meaning why I would run. And I think I always held on to that. But it also motivated me because I would always think about or consider our family and people back on Hopi. So I would think about those experiences growing up and apply that to what does it mean to be doing this in a much bigger setting, in a much bigger world, big races, even, going to like Nike Nationals and going to the Gatorade Nationals, going to even just the big giant invitationals like Doug Conley, the Kiwanis Invitational, the Flagstaff Invitational in Prescott. And you're competing, competing with other Native kids and other Hopi kids. And we would always see other Hopi kids from Hopi Junior Senior High or from Tuba. And those experiences were great because it allowed us to feel that sense of camaraderie and competition, friendly competition, basically. And we would be able to enjoy the process, the journey of running. And those experiences in high school were really awesome. That was the fun part. And I just parlayed some of those experiences into wanting to do more. So I ended up doing a lot of like 10Ks, half marathons, and started to adjust to the idea of doing a marathon back then. And it wasn't really until I was in college, actually in Washington, D.C., when I moved there at age 15, I was able to really run my first marathon there locally. And then in college, when I went to school in Los Angeles, that's when I got my taste of the LA Marathon and went up to San Francisco. And then I was able to witness what that was like to do half marathons consistently. But, back in the 90s, it was a totally different experience. Today, it's a much larger social experience because you're able to invite more people not necessarily during the pandemic, but before the pandemic, you could engage the community, engage other people using apps and Strava or the Nike Fitness app, and invite other people to be a part of your circle or your network. And that, I think, changed the dynamics. And I've gone in and out of experimenting with so many different apps, including the Garmin's app, which it's been pretty awesome and kind of dependable for me. But those change your perception of how the running experience is overall. And for me, if it wasn't for all these tools and ways to reconnect over and over on a daily basis with running, I don't know where I would be, because if I would get exhausted or bored or burned out with it, I think I would stop. But right now, the fact that I was able to continue with the running through college and the way I wanted to in college, even though my partial scholarship paid for some of that, and I did run for Loyola Marymount University, and then a little bit for the school experiences there. It was just a totally different beast once I got into the real world of trying to balance college with actually working, real jobs, and then trying to figure out how to maintain a healthy lifestyle, healthy balance. And once you get into the work world, then it changes completely, and you have to really figure out how you're going to dedicate time and commit time to running. But these days I run a lot. I run quite a bit. Not as much and as fast as Kyle does, but it's something I share in, and that's why I think I really appreciate being able to connect back to some of these experiences that Kyle is going through, and live vicariously through him as he does the races, especially the Boston Marathon. I mean, I've been before, and I've gone in the 90s to experience that, but today is a totally different game overall. So yeah, so thanks for that question, Peter.
Absolutely. So just a little spin-off of this. Why do you think it is like Native Americans are really good runners?
I think inherently overall, it's just in our blood. It's in the DNA. I think to a certain extent, we grew up as a social species in that community where you're nurtured and you're continuously encouraged, whether it's direct or indirect in that community, you're encouraged to continue to run. And I think maybe some of the experiences for Native American kids nowadays, if they're not gravitating toward playing games on these gaming systems all day long, and they're bored and they're still able to tinker with sticks and stones outside, and you'll be able to play with that old-fashioned way of trying to kind of keep yourself preoccupied, you're going to have a natural tendency to want to do outdoor things, I think. And if you're encouraged by your parents, your family, your community, that plays a huge role in, I think, shaping and affecting change early on in terms of how the youth and the kids are able to see that. And I think I was really pretty much privileged in that way, growing up in the village, literally in the village, and having those shared experiences with all these other kids, and running around was just part of it. And so we would run to the cornfields too. That was one of the things we did. And I know Kyle and them at their village, they have cornfields not too far from their place. So I'm sure a lot of the community members still continue to trek down to their fields like that. With modern conveniences, I think things have changed a little bit, and people kind of fall for the lifestyle where it's easy to not run. But I think naturally for Native kids and Native American runners in general, once you identify with the appreciation and the benefits of what running does for you mentally, spiritually, culturally, psychologically, psychosomatically, it helps you adjust to reality, whatever that reality is that you're living with, especially with all the traumas and the tension that we've experienced in recent years with things that we face every day. I think indigenous runners just have that inherent ability to be able to navigate that, and that's something we have to embrace as a community, as Native runners. We have to continue to hold on to that, and then also espouse that philosophy that we're taught, those values that we're taught growing up in the village, you know, growing up in that community setting, the traditional values.
That's awesome. I love that. Kyle, so let's say a freshman in high school comes up to you and he wants to be in your position. Like, what do you tell a kid?
So, you know, I would just tell them like, hey, I was in the same walking in the same shoes as you are, even though like I'm not the fastest or I wasn't the talented or like that super freshman ever in high school, which I have witnessed some. But you know, I just tell him like, hey, you know, I was in the same pocket as you are, so just don't feel oh so low self-esteem about it or discouraged because like, you know, I believe that like it's just based upon like how the fitness is gonna go or how you can prologue the wellness and fitness and you know just following those good habits because you know things are going to evolve you know as much as you get older and you know as for me right now you know I am getting stronger, I am getting faster as I get older and it just tends to prolong as much as I just fall back on training and trusting the process. And you know, I consider myself as a late bloomer, and you know, I'll just say, tell them, be like, hey, it's gonna be fine. Everything will pan out, and there are going to be some highs and lows. You know, I mean, it's all about getting better, you know, going back to the drawing board or going back to relearning those mistakes and be like, oh, hey, I can work on this, I can work on this, or tinker with this. So, you know, I mean, you know, when it comes to that point, it just really most certainly makes me happy because I believe in growth, you know, I believe in maturity and the longevity too as well, because if you just keep maintaining that healthy, well balanced lifestyle, and I am sure that you know everything will strongly unfold and pan out great. So you know, as long as you have the grit and you know being driven by it, and then you know everything will pan out just great because it happened to me. I was a freshman. I didn't know what I was going into, just coming out fresh from middle school or junior high, then going into high school because, you know, there were some kids that were fast. You know, I was just that freshman. You know, started from JV, and then it kind of evolved into going into varsity, and then being the seventh guy, not even scoring for the team, or being the sixth guy, not even closely scoring for the team, and then it continued to evolve being the fifth guy, then the fourth guy, then the second guy, and then the first guy, and being able to score for the team. So, you know, I mean, kids like that, they just make me really happy and content because, you know, I was that kid. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you said you made a point. You said trust the process. Like, what is that process that you referred to?
You know, just listening to what your coach is there to navigate you and guide you how the fitness is going to go, and indicating knowing that you know there's going to be more to it. It's not just about running and getting stronger, the whole physicality of it, but there's another in depth into it, knowing that you're going to have to, if you want to be a good and strong fast runner, you're going to have to dive in much more into depth with it, knowing that you're gonna have to eat well, you're gonna have to get to 9 to 10 hours of sleep at night, knowing that you got to take care of your body because your body is a temple. You know, you just can't go out there and be like, hey, I can run this fast mile or this fast 400 or 800 without no stretching, no dynamic warm up or anything. So you know, it's just all about treating your body as a temple and just listening to your coach or mentor. And there's some other runners who will you know give you some advice, and you know you just got to let it all settle in, knowing that it's going to prologue and give you that, I guess, that good boost of morale, or you know the delight of speedness. So you know, as I always say, you know, just treat your body like a temple and everything will pan out. So yeah.
Nice. I like that. So, Duane, really quickly, back to you.
Mhm.
So, I know you're a professional. I heard you say you just got off of work. How do you balance training for a marathon? Years ago, I mean, I'm 45, but when I was in my late 20s, I did a couple of full marathons. but it was a lot of training, a lot of hours, and I had no kids, right? How does one balance life with running and training for marathons?
Yeah, so that really just comes down to finding that rhythm and that routine, and understanding that a part of that balance just includes purposefully, intentionally setting aside time, and you're accountable only to yourself. You're accountable to all the things that you've done every day to manifest these small opportunities to actually go run and do that workout. And sometimes it could be early in the morning, and sometimes it could be a combination of early in the morning and the evening, latter part of the day, or it could be, you know, purposefully taking a break midday to break up the monotony. And so what I've done is over time created a routine and a rhythm where I have to break up the day in order to feel like I need that rejuvenation. And sometimes you just need to shake out. Sometimes you just need to go and put in like 2-3 miles just to sweat it off whatever you're going through and experiencing that day. And that adds to the mileage. But to have a plan, right? That's purposeful, that's intentional. So in terms of prepping for a marathon and training for a marathon, whether it's a half or a full, or even ultras, you know that there's a certain amount of mileage you're going to cover. You know that there's X amount of hours of a workout or training that you have to do. So what you do is, in my place, at least from my perception, is follow that plan. And I know Kyle spoke to this a little bit. You got to pay attention to what your coach says, especially if you're a young runner. But as you grow older and mature, you realize, okay, you can discipline yourself. You can train yourself to follow your own plan, what works for you. And in my case, if I allow that 16 to 18 weeks prior to a big race like a marathon, and squeeze in a bunch of milestone races in between, that helps, especially in terms of progressing and looking at what it is that's required to meet those marks, the personal best marks. So for instance, let's say I took a break for a year of running, right? And I know I need to get back into it. A part of that experience is going to be figuring out where I'm at overall, health-wise, fitness-wise, and then see how much I'm going to have to do to get to a level where if I want to match a certain pace, you know, the 6:30 pace, let's say, for instance, for a 10K or a 10 miler or a half marathon, you just have to backwards calculate, figure out what that plan is going to look like, and allow for X amount of workouts to lead up to that. Your progressive runs, your tempo runs, your hill workouts, which are especially important for training, and figure out what kind of fartlek run will make a difference for that particular workout. And it just varies and fluctuates. So in the past, I've gone through these cycles where for a race or for like a marathon that I've trained for, I've lost a lot of weight, but built strength and muscle in a certain way. And then there's some instances where I've kept on the weight, but try to maintain that strength. And you have to balance that with core workouts where you're protecting the integrity of your muscles and not allowing it to completely break down. And you've probably heard this before in training, and especially as a runner, endurance runner, you know, the first thing that's going to burn are your muscles, because your fat stores are there purposely. Your body's journey is to protect that fat. So there's a trick to figuring out how you burn the fat versus the muscle and retain that muscle. And I recently learned over the last few years that a part of maintaining this kind of rhythm and this routine is having a the fat cells versus your actual muscle tissue. And that's something that I've learned just by paying attention and making note of what happens when I drink half a cup, 2 cups, you know, when I drink it, how I drink it, and especially tea. Tea is something I've always been used to, and that's made a difference in both traditional Hopi tea and then also classic Asian black tea or green teas. How does that play a part into nutrition and fitness? And then overall, attention that's paid to your diet, that also plays a huge role in motivating you, because you want a good, healthy diet that allows you to feel refreshed, so that when you wake up, you're able to just get out there and do those miles. Because the more you just sort of naturally gain weight without paying attention to that and eating maybe too much carbs, then you just start to get heavy, and that affects your running routine and your rhythm overall. So, but yeah, it just requires a little certain finesse with your schedule and balancing all these little tiny points in your everyday journey, and then your overall larger journey, to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And that's just an experience you have to go through as a runner, and figure out for yourself.
Wow, that's very extensive. And, you know, like you think about that, and like I'm kind of hearing that you really have to know your body, right? You really have to know how it is, how it reacts to different inputs, and so you get the output. Kyle, let me go back to you. How do you avoid overtraining?
Oh, so, like what Duane has said, diet and sleep, rest, and just doing all the little things. But, there's only a certain amount of time, because I have overtrained the past 2 years, and talked to Duane about it, and he was pretty much kind of like guiding me and showing me some advice. But, it's all about intaking some rest, hydration, and diet, and about this regarding to the little things is making sure you have a well-maintained balance with doing straining work, just despite like all the running, but with straining work, and then doing some like flexibility, mobility, and all those kind of like, I guess you could say, wacky exercises, I would like to call them. But they tend to prologue and make that longevity of making your body stronger, and injury prevention too as well. So those things were kind of new to me. I didn't really necessarily thought it was really necessary for me, but then again, I kind of took the idea, knowing that it does make you into a better runner, and knowing that knowing your body is much more important than avoiding overtraining. So it was something new for me, and till this day I kind of carried that on, and it just kept me well maintained, and I was happy about it. So yeah.
That's awesome. So, Kyle, I believe, didn't you run the Shiprock Marathon a couple years ago?
Yeah, back in 2019.
Okay, that's what I thought. I remember seeing your name, and so that's going to get to my next question. How do you like map out races that you want to do? I know Duane talked about like there's going to be some stages where you're going to targets that you want to meet. How do you balance travel? I know you are young professionals, and you have jobs, and how do you balance out, or not balance out, but how do you plan your travel and making sure that you're running even while you are on travel?
Travel for workouts and training is one thing, since I mostly don't have to go too far. But however, for races and meets, since we live on the Hopi reservation, we are like isolated from everywhere. And so far, like most big races, I will always have to like travel far, and then so that has to be well planned out, and as well. So traveling to Boston definitely requires a huge planning process as well, knowing that I'm well accommodated, knowing that fitting this checkout run or any other some mobility things that I need to do. So yeah.
Awesome. That's pretty cool. I always struggle with that when I go on travel, for work, and I'm like, oh, I got to find a time to run. But that's pretty awesome. So, Duane, back to you. So, talk with me a little bit about the mental aspect to running, because I know whatever you think in here, it goes, right? So, talk to me about the mental aspect.
Yeah, for sure. So just to kind of riff on what you were asking about the travel, that does play a part into how you approach and plan the running experience that you want to have for yourself, right? Because as a runner, you're shaping and molding not only your physique, your body, your mind, and how you approach running overall, but you're also shaping sort of like an ecosystem or a world, a mini world that you're going to live in. So there's like a routine that you create for yourself. And a part of that experience of mentally preparing every day, mentally approaching your day with a certain sort of light and love and appreciation for the running, for the work that you're going to do. For me, especially because I do travel a lot, and pre-pandemic, I was traveling a lot. I mean, I was racking up, thousands of miles and companion miles and all this sort of side effects of traveling, in that burnout, living out of bags in hotels, or having to manage times to fit in the running schedule. But like, part of that process mentally is learning a system that's very specific to your needs, and you have to look at your needs. And how do you analyze what those needs are as a runner? You have to pull back and sit back. And this is something that I've shared with young runners too as well, is that, you can gain insight from watching other runners, but what you're seeing is to outwork physical performance of what they're doing. You're watching a race and you're seeing some of these top runners, especially in a race like the London Marathon or the Olympics, for example, and you watch what they're doing and showcasing what they're doing on the outside. They're extremely focused and prepared, but to get them to that place, to have that focus and that preparation, it might have taken them 4 years of lots of consistent evolution, day in, day out. And that mental stability, that mental sanity you have to have, that stamina, that endurance, mentally, spiritually, physically, they all coincide. They all play a part in how they come together. And part of figuring out your body is learning how to master that. You got to win victory over yourself first. You have to allow yourself to be malleable and flexible enough that you can shape it and mold it into becoming a certain type of runner that you want to become. If you try to cheat, or if you try to fake it, or if you pretend like you're getting your 10 miles a week, and you put it on your log and you're like, yeah, I ran 5, let's just put down, I wrote down 10, and eventually it's going to catch up to you. It's totally going to catch up to you. And that's what happens with a lot of runners. They and I've helped a little bit, and I coached some runners in the past, and I've been a part of other training programs. So I've watched how people personally do it and how they treat it and how they go through that routine. But one of the big advice or tools that I would provide to young runners is that you have to be really cognizant and aware of who you are as a human being and what you actually can do and can't do. And if you strive to become a really good runner, open yourself up to that possibility of what is it going to take. I might be the last one coming in at 10th grade, and I keep coming in last, but what is it going to take for me to get that much more better? Well, it's going to mean run the day's workout, then give yourself time to go extra and do extra and keep doing extra every single day. And eventually you're going to start surpassing other people. And it's something Kyle spoke about. It's because I experienced this too in high school. It's like, you can go from being a mediocre runner within a matter of a few months. And that's why some of these runners throughout the season, and it's something that I've recognized with native runners, is that throughout the summer, they don't necessarily train all the time. But once the season starts and they start training, if they put in extra work, extra effort, extra miles, it makes a huge difference. In a matter of 6 to 10 weeks, you can become a much better runner really fast. If you just, you have to put in that workout and effort. And that comes down to, how do you mentally approach, how am I going to treat this as a runner, and how much do I care about it? And so that's one aspect of the whole overall journey when it comes to running. And then of course there's all the other sociological and psychological perspectives, but mentally that's what it takes, I think, for me personally.
That's awesome. And I appreciate you sharing that and just clarifying, because I think it's, like you said, it's your mind, your body, your spirit, your soul. So that leads me to the next question. I'll ask both of you this. Like, how important is that culture, that Hopi culture that you all bring to who you are?
Kyle, do you want to go?
You go on this one. Overall throughout the years, we're kind of like, we're growing up as farmers, and we always eat like hearty and healthy foods, and I kind of indulge myself knowing that everything's just so like full grown from the ground, and we were just we're just a bunch of farmers. So just for the mind, body, and soul, that really kind of enlighten us of who we are, where we come from, and what we have been through, like throughout the whole past years of being Hopi. But all in all, we were just kind of, just living off the land, knowing the land, and yeah. So
Duane, what about you?
Yeah, so culturally, I know for a fact that uniquely enough, and specifically our experiences growing up on Hopi, and growing up in that village, culturally you witness a lot as a child, and you observe and take all those experiences in, and they say that you become the sum of all your experiences. Well, that includes how the community not only raises you, or the village raises you and treats you growing up, but it's also how you participate and to what degree you take part in all the cultural activities that shapes who you become. And one of those huge aspects is paying attention to your role, quote unquote, as a leader. No matter how small it is, you might be young, but in those cultural activities, it's almost encouraged in Hopi culture to be a little bit more proactive in terms of looking at who you are, for self-reliancy, self-sufficiency, self-determination, because they're trying to shape you to become a strong human being. And running is just one aspect of that. That's why I think it's a tool culturally that contributes to shaping who you are. But I think more importantly, culturally, in Hopi, when you go through all those small experiences of witnessing and watching, from dances to ceremonies to the foot races, you realize, like, okay, there's an interconnectedness to all of this culturally. There's a reason, a purpose, and a place for all of these things taking place and occurring. And so that makes a difference in having that deeper appreciation for who you are, where you come from, so that when you go off reservation, for instance, and you go to school away from Hopi, you go to college away from the reservation, you can use that as motivation. You can use that as certain as a tool or device or energy to push you through certain things, because you've just gone through all of these experiences that made you that much more stronger, and capable of pushing through and really surpassing your own expectations, surpassing certain goals that you can do. And that's where the resiliency, and I think that's where the strength in having a strong connection to culture plays a role. And I think it's important that kids today, the youth today, they have to find a way to be attracted to, or ask your parents without hesitation, can I learn my language? Can I learn Hopi? Can I learn Dene? Can I learn whatever specific cultural traditions or ceremonies that you're not aware of or you don't know about? Because those shape who you are, and it molds you into becoming a stronger human being. And so we, as Native people, we have to take pride in that. We have to embrace all those aspects of culture. And just like Kyle said, Hopi is a very agricultural based community, and we depend and thrive on going to the cornfields, tending to the cornfields, the squash fields, the melon fields, the bean fields. And growing up, that's always been a strong, vital part of shaping who at least I've become, in terms of making sure that I take time out and I set aside time for those moments, no matter how small it is. Even just something as simple as going to a grocery store and you look at the melons and you're judging the melons, or you're trying to pick out squash. It's like it's gonna take you back to what you grew up with and how you were able to pick those melons and pick the squash off the field. And you get sort of a natural instinct, and you I guess improve that instinct in terms of what you know is going to be a healthy way to treat your body, and learn that culture played a huge part in all of that, the overall journey, the overall experience.
Wow, I've got some really good information from you all. And, people really like hearing running podcasts, and, just because of the success Native people have with running. So definitely quite a few people will hear this. Is there anything else you would like to share? Maybe the GoFundMe and any fundraising you all have?
Sure. Kyle, I don't know if there's any last words, and then I can follow you.
No. So like the whole GoFundMe, we were kind of like hesitant to even launch it before because with the whole pandemic and everything. But then again, before those years, we have Duane and I have been working together and prolonging and putting everything together and knowing that we want to serve a purpose and just to get that word out there, knowing that we're kind of like on a big mission or on a journey, knowing that we wanted to fulfill something that was so I guess you could say powerful to our Native American people. So, you know, it was one of those special moments and things that we first kind of build a relationship off of, and knowing that like, hey, we kind of like treat this whole thing like our own child, because, you know, there were some highs and lows, knowing that we wanted to present something to the Native American folks and even youth. And, you know, it was something that we wanted to do for so long. And, you know, with the whole pandemic thing, it kind of put a pause on us. And, you know, until now, things started to kind of unfold. So the GoFundMe was something that was kind of like a big project for us to put together. And yeah, we're all delighted, and knowing that we wanted to showcase and present what we wanted to connect with the Native American folks. And so, yeah.
Yeah, so just going off of what Kyle said, I think what was important to us was to not give up. So leading up to the Boston Marathon in 2020, I think it was the summer of 2019 when after Kyle quote unquote qualified with the Shiprock Marathon, he won that race, and we had those conversations. And what is this going to mean? Should I apply? Should I not apply? You know, that's a part of that process of not giving up. So we both sat down, we talked about it, and he was able to go ahead and submit his application with that qualifying time. And I think much to our surprise, it was just a matter of what is it going to mean when we move on to the next step and stage, and how are we going to figure this out and embrace it. But we realized that, you know, we can do this. We can come up with a plan and we can execute on it. And so we started to do that. And of course, like Kyle said, there was highs and lows. There was a couple races that we wanted to do, and then there was one of the other competitive races that Kyle was going to do. And then, of course, foot injuries or muscle injuries or anything that happens along the way, those play a part in causing how you want to shift up your schedule, shift up your plan. And so we had to adapt fast. But of course, it wasn't until the pandemic hit in March of 2020, that's when it completely derailed our original plans to do what we're doing now with the GoFundMe campaign, and also with this experience of the documentary and the journey that we're going on to document and be able to journalize all of Kyle's experiences. So I think what we did is we put all that energy that we manifested into that experience that we were going to do back then, and we just put it on hold. We knew we wanted to do it. We harnessed the fact that we had some ideas and things laid out about how we wanted to approach the Boston Marathon, the training plan, the training schedule. And then, you know, all of the entire year of 2020 going into 2021, we kept asking ourselves, like, how is this going to go? When is it going to end? When can we be able to participate in races and do that again? And I think it took Kyle doing one or two races where they actually opened it up from going virtual. Most races went virtual in 2020, and there was one or two races that were non-virtual. They were in person, they were smaller crowds, but I think that gave us that extra boost that it helped Kyle's morale, definitely helped my mental morale about how we were going to do this. And then so going into this year and just recently getting that invitation, because the Boston Marathon is very limited this year, and there's only X number of runners versus in the past where they would open the field up and there would be over 50,000 runners. I'm thinking there's probably about 20,000, maybe 30,000 at most this year. But in terms of the top runners, the folks that actually had the solid, credible qualifying times, that pool is smaller. And so we feel privileged, we feel honored. And that's one of the reasons why we're really pushing for this opportunity and sharing it with the community. And we want everybody to join us and take part in following what we're going to go through. We plan to document all of these experiences while we're going to Boston, and then also be able to showcase those moments that we're able to take part in while we're in Boston. And I think it would be great to just kind of reconnect and then share with your audience too, and your listeners about what we experienced at some point, because it's very unique to go to a really large scale race like that. And for Kyle, it's the first time, so Boston is going to be quite an awesome experience for all of us.
Wow, that's really exciting, and I'm glad that you all were able to share the GoFundMe. I'll definitely link it to my pages whenever I do the podcast notes, the show notes, and then also share that on my YouTube as well. But I appreciate you all taking time. I know it took us a little bit to connect, and I'm glad we finally connected so you all can share your story. And I think at heart, we're all runners, right? We all run at some point, and that's one thing that we try to do. I know my wife and I, we run regularly. I usually just do 2 miles per day and longer runs on weekends. But you guys shared some really good information, to help me with my running journey as well. And, I appreciate it. And again, listeners there, here's the interview with Duane Humeyestewa and Kyle Sumatzkuku. So again, I'll definitely follow up with you all at the conclusion of the Boston Marathon, and so you can document your journey and share. And if you all have anything you want me to share, I'd be willing to share that with my listeners and my followers. But we're all set. If you all could send me some pictures that I can put on the podcast for the audio. I do pull the video as well, and then I separate the audio, and then I post the audio for people to download and drive and listen. So again, I appreciate you all, this interview.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it.